This week on Millennial, we're joined by a cybersecurity expert, Christy, aka Voldemort. So people could grab your personal data in the air, right?
Yeah, they'd be snooping. Yeah. And if I'm sitting there at Starbucks being bold and moral, that second half right there, I can see what you're doing.
ExpressVPN does not and will never log traffic data, DSM queries, or anything that could be used to identify you.
Yes, that's it.
That's why they didn't catch you dumping all those bodies in Lake Mead.
I searched your name and your address, and I only found one thing.
Oh. See, this is the benefit of having like a super common name.
Yes.
Give your kids super common names, y'all, and you'll be protecting them.
Welcome to Millennial. We are the home of pretend adulting and real talk. This week about how you should protect you and your personal information online. We have a great guest coming up.
Well, first, I just feel the need to address the fact that we're missing a third of our regular panel today. Pam could not be here. She had an unfortunate cooking accident not too long before we started recording this episode. And she's currently in the ER awaiting getting some stitches. She's okay and she's going to be fine. But I know she was really disappointed to not be able to be here, and probably even more disappointed to be hanging out in an overcrowded, understaffed emergency room.
Yeah. Well, we're glad she is okay, but yeah, that only happened a couple hours ago. I feel like she has done this before. We need to get her some protective gloves or something.
Agreed. Well, on this week's episode, we're going to be focusing entirely on the topic of cybersecurity and how to stay safe online and protect your personal information. We think that we know a decent amount about this, but in order to have this conversation and to make sure that we're not leading anyone astray, we've actually brought a cybersecurity professional on this week's show. So Christy, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And you can also refer to me, if you would like to, as Voldemort.
Voldemort.
Yes.
Is that your preference for the remainder of the episode?
You know, let's go with it. Let's do it.
Voldemort. I don't know if I want to interview somebody named Voldemort about cybersecurity. That's a little, I don't know if I can trust
Genius
that.
and crazy, though, they are one and the same.
Yeah.
Sure. You're
100%.
right, Voldemort. Whatever.
No, and I think it's interesting, and maybe we can get into this a little bit before we talk more about your background, but you shared why it is that you use this pseudonym pretty much exclusively anywhere you have an online presence. Could you share the reasoning for that?
Right, absolutely. Being in cybersecurity and existing in the cyber realm, I'm paranoid. And given my experience, with good reason, not having your name publicly available that you can just Google or find anywhere is important to me, just as I see as it's becoming important to other people.
Yeah, it's such an important issue. It's one of those things that's always lingering in the background, cybersecurity and online privacy. And at least we here don't talk about it too often, maybe a passing reference or two from time to time. So for that reason, because we don't talk about it more, I am very much looking forward to this discussion and how people can protect themselves online.
Yeah, me as well. Looking forward to it.
Well, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background in cybersecurity and ultimately what led you to this field?
Yeah, so 18 years old, I joined the military and was in military intelligence for almost a decade. And in that experience, I worked closely with the cybersecurity team, and I absolutely was enthralled at what they did and was able to be afforded the opportunity to be involved in some of their activities, which was I found incredible. I loved the thrill. I loved how it was different every single day, and in that, I was young and impressionable, and I decided to get a bachelor's degree and go for it in cybersecurity. And in doing so, right at the time that I exited the military, I was picked up by someone and was given the opportunity to really begin my career. And I think that coming from a position of really not having any experience at all, and then being given the experience to grow and learn, I was afforded a viewpoint where I felt like I could teach others who know absolutely nothing about cybersecurity and bring them up to speed on just simply how to be safe online. And it's as simple as just doing a couple of steps and you wouldn't even believe it.
And you wouldn't even believe it.
But wait, there's more. I mean, you're definitely a well-respected name in your field between your military background and then also all of the development you've done in the realm of cybersecurity. As kind of an aside, I wanted to bring this up. You were recently interviewed by the New York Times, right?
I was. A couple weeks ago, I posted something on my Twitter, and a journalist had found that post and sent me a message and said, "Hey, I think this is funny and quirky. I would love to interview you." And I said, "Cool, let's chat about it." And that chat ended up being about Chat GPT, and yeah,
Oh.
and I thought, of course, she was going to interview me on all the ways I would use GPT to do like malware deconstruction and deobfuscation, maybe how I would write bash scripting, and this is all, of course, technical IT and cybersecurity jargon. And I was wrong in that assumption. She was looking for something very different, more of an approach on how people are using it in their personal lives to write love letters to their partner because they can't think of what in the world to say back, or how to, tell their mom that they really loved spending time with them, or, just the person
Aw.
who had a hard time writing a thank you letter to their cousin for inviting them to their wedding. Just very unique and
Yeah. It's amazing the use
yes,
It
cases.
yes.
really
And
is.
and it was an incredible experience to be able to have that opportunity to speak with such a world-renowned icon like the New York Times. But unfortunately, to this day, that interview of mine was not published in the Chat GPT article by the New York Times. So, as as a
Boo. So you've canceled and you've switched to
not
Washington
not even
Post.
that. I wrote my own article on Medium on ChatGPT, and I was my own storyteller and hype man for ChatGPT. So
Oh,
there are some very interesting things
okay.
that exist on that article. And in fact, there's a headline that says ChatGPT's morals challenged by Vold Immoral. It's a good read.
Awesome. We'll be sure to link it in the show
Good. I'm looking.
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah, titled ChatGPT AI for All. But actually, speaking of Medium, you did publish another article on Medium about how to remove your personal information from the internet. And this is a really hot topic right now. Many people looking to do it for exactly the reasons you describe in your article, which we'll get into. Do you feel like there's been a shift in what people are comfortable with having online? Because I know something that we have spoken about on the show is kind of this move to the closed groups in social media, for example, or group texting. It's not so much anymore about posting publicly on Twitter or on Facebook. It's you go in the Twitter circles, you go in the Facebook groups, you go in the group chat. People just have a preference. They're gravitating towards the private stuff these days.
Right. I think that people these days just want to be private. They don't want to be out there. But also, we're in an age where data breaches are not uncommon. People's personal information is being leaked, it's being stolen. Large, respected companies are being hacked. Speaking of today, there was an article released that ChatGPT was actually breached. And that is as of March 28th, 2023. And I have not actually had an opportunity. I've actually been in jury duty all week to get to catch up on
Ew.
that. It was actually a very interesting week, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's just online on anonymity. is just being
Yeah.
anonymous online. And I think that that is very fair. And people want to be comfortable when you're putting yourself out there as soon as you agree to be online in any way.
Yeah, and I think more people were more open to being more public on the internet 10, 20 years ago, just because of the novelty, I guess. Like, oh, this is so neat.
Yeah.
What a cool, I can join Facebook and connect with my friends and share posts and they can instantly see them. Cool, 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 cool. But we've all grown very tired of that. And we've come to see all the issues that come along with being less private online.
Yes, it can get you into some trouble, which I've actually, in my experiences, been able to help solve crimes just by people having their information online and putting it out there. And I think that that's incredibly powerful for people to understand.
Is that something that you can speak to a little more?
There are cases that I have personally worked on that are publicly available, but because of those articles, I am not going to disclose of them.
Sure.
However, if you know where to look, you will know where to find them.
Got it.
Because it is online.
Right.
That's pretty cool, though.
It's things like stealing, people not realizing that if your phone is connected to Wi-Fi and if you have Xfinity and you know you have Xfinity's hotspots and you're going from state to state, county to county, city to city, if your Wi-Fi is remembered and you're connecting to those hotspots, you're able to follow somebody by their wireless footprint, which a lot of people also don't think about.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, since we're on the topic, what are some other ways that people might be leaving their digital footprint in places and not even know that they're doing it?
Great question. So there are a lot of people who want to know about themselves. There are people who are adopted. There are people in foster care now who don't know where they're from, where they come from, what their heritage is, their culture. So they agree to do DNA tests, things like 23andMe, Ancestry DNA, and people don't realize that some of that data, it's just as easy as spending $10 and downloading that personal information. Some of those companies that receive your DNA, they actually sell it for profit. They're selling that data on you. Your DNA is so unique and specific to you. And you have to understand there will never be another you that ever exists in life. And in that, I'm going to say you're important and you matter. And in that, you are giving these companies all about you. And on the flip side on that, there have actually been cold cases that have been solved from relatives submitting their DNA to these ancestry sites, which I think is incredibly cool.
It is.
It is cool. What was it a serial killer in California that they ended up?
The Golden State Killer.
The Golden
Yep.
State,
I'm looking
yes.
at it
That's
now.
right.
Yep.
State killer. Yep. And then there was also a cold case where they were able to identify a murder victim from 1988.
Whoa.
Wow.
Which is incredible. So
Here I was born.
So, your information online can have some validity and helping to bring, resolve and healing to families. That's just one great example of that.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it can cut the other way, right? I mean, I'll
It absolutely
say
can.
here, I've definitely done a DNA test because my mom is the family genealogist. She's made us all do them. So what you're saying is somebody could go to the service that I went to and pay to download my family tree.
Right. Yep.
Oh,
Anyone can do that?
Anyone can do that.
Oh my God.
If they know how to do that, they can do it. So here's an example. So say that you are super secure online, right? You're locking your social medias down, you're deleting your personal information online, but aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, they don't really understand the dangers of being online. And they're posting about you going to graduation. They're posting all of these pictures of you. They're tagging you in things, and their profiles are not private. So there you are exposed again. So being private online is, in this day and age, it is very difficult to achieve. Like supreme and utmost anonymous, to be anonymous online, you'd practically have to unplug everything, turn off your power, move out of state, just grab some land, pitch a tent, and live vicariously on the land. That's it.
I mean, that sounds pretty nice.
It does.
That's what you say you're going to do in your Medium article, too.
That is most definitely what I plan to do at some point.
Yeah, get a nice camper van. They do really good jobs like remodeling the inside, so it feels like a real comfortable living space. I've looked at these before. I want to rent one for a weekend.
Yes, I just really want a pet cow. There are these really beautiful, just super hairy, fuzzy cows, and I just want a pet cow, and I want it to be normal, and I want to brush it, and I want to live on the land. And
well, I will say based on the part of the country that we live in, there are cows.
There are plenty.
There are plenty of them. So
yes,
should be easy enough.
Growing up in my town, cow tipping was an actual thing, and I'm pretty sure it still is. But I'm not of that age group anymore, and I don't know a cow to tip. So
yeah, it was a thing in my hometown too.
Have you ever cow tipped, Laura?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, I don't know. Voldemort all said she did, so maybe you did too.
Hey, the only difference in cow tipping then and now is now you get to live stream the cow tipping for everyone else to enjoy. Back then, it was just a thing you did.
Well, getting back to personal information online and the risks associated with it, I think most commonly when people think about the risks, they think about identity theft when they imagine what can happen if their information falls into the wrong hands. But I'm wondering if in your experience, there are other types of risks that people might not be considering.
Identity theft is one of the biggest risk. And in that risk kind of comes this, it's an umbrella term, and then it just starts to rain. And out of that risk comes, I would say, consequences. And consequences of your data being stolen, hacked is really, really unfortunate for honest people who haven't done anything except be honest people and good people. And it's things like your credit being ruined. And you say that, but the weight to it of your credit being ruined, when you think about it, it's preventing you from opening other accounts financially, from buying a car that you need to transport yourself and your family to so that you can feed them and make sure that they have what they need. It prevents you from renting an apartment to put your family in so they have a place to reside. It prevents, on some occasions, even from you getting a job, which some places will check your credit scores. There are other jobs where it requires an investigation because you need a top secret clearance. And I think that is a really hot point to hit on.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about how many employers do check your credit report. This was not something that I was aware of until I finished school several years ago and was out on the job market looking for my first postgraduate job. It's super common and honestly feels kind of violating because there are a lot of reasons why your credit report may look the way it does. An example that kind of speaks to what you were just talking about was when I was in college, my identity got stolen and somebody opened up an AirTran credit card in my name. AirTran, for all of the youths listening, it was an airline that was absorbed by Southwest. It doesn't exist anymore. But at the time they had their own credit card. Somebody, I can only assume it must have been an AirTran employee, because why else would you have access? And then why would you open an AirTran credit card?
Right.
And they charged a magazine subscription to it. I had no idea about the thing. And because I was young and I didn't know how to deal with any of this, it ended up going to collections and it ended up getting reported on my credit report. And it sat there for the whole 7 years, just fucking my credit.
It's just so common. And it's unfortunate, especially for the younger generation who don't understand the risk of their identity being stolen, and then it affects literally their future.
Yeah. So let's talk about some common security myths. And we're thinking here the incognito browser modes that you see on like Chrome and Safari, or VPNs and hotspots. Like, what are some common security myths that you think people should know about?
Okay, so with incognito routers, I first want to say that if you're using incognito mode or private mode, it doesn't mean you're being sneaky. It doesn't mean that they're being sneaky. It means that they're trying to keep themselves from being seen. That's really what it is. And I'll give you some very, very just juvenile examples. And that's, you share a computer with your family because your family can only afford one computer, and brothers and sisters are on there, and you don't want them to see what you've been doing. Or maybe you're a parent and you're just shopping for presents, and you don't want your kids that are old enough to know what's going on to see where they've been shopping for them. And the thing about incognito browsers is when you close the browser out, it doesn't save your browsing history, of course. It, by default, it blocks cookies, which cookies are tracking you. They track your clicks, they track your comments, they track your posts, they track what you buy. It's also a great way to keep your work and personal life separate, really.
So if you're at work and you're feeling a little hot and heavy, maybe you're hitting up Pornhub in the middle of the day.
Don't do
want
that.
the boss knowing that. So you load up incognito mode, so it won't be in your browser history.
I'm going to say if you're on your company computer and it's company owned and you're looking at funky stuff, and we know what we're talking about.
Funky stuff.
If you think your IT isn't sitting back there thinking, I see what you're doing. And the thing is we don't care. We're just laughing because it's just,
okay.
you know.
All right. So that was a bad example, maybe, and maybe this is a good lesson for everybody. Don't use porn at work. Go on porn at work, even in incognito mode. Do it on your own personal phone.
Yeah.
But at home, when you want to hide
from your wife, your husband,
bigboobs.net from the wife, right? You load up incognito mode.
Keep it to yourself.
And while that does protect you sort of within like your own interpersonal dynamics in your household of other people who are using that device, incognito mode does not make what you're doing online anonymous, does it?
No, that's a VPN. So that's a virtual private network. And that's where it hides your IP address. It hides, where you're from, all that good stuff. And another thing to point out is incognito mode and private browsing does not prevent you from downloading or getting viruses, malware, ransomware. It doesn't do that. It's not antivirus or anything like that. It's I don't see what you're doing because you're on that computer. As far as what you're doing on the internet, that is a network. That is from your computer out into the world. People can see that. People, if they know what they're doing, they can see that if you're not using a VPN. Absolutely.
That's a really good point, too, because we've done ads for VPN companies before. And one thing that I remind people is that if you go to, let's say, Starbucks, you click on, and you have your laptop, you click on Starbucks Wi-Fi. That's an unprotected Wi-Fi network. So people could grab your personal data in the air, right?
Yeah, they'd be snooping. Yeah. And if I'm sitting there at Starbucks being bold and moral, that second half right there, I can see what you're doing. And if you're using your company computer on a public network without a VPN,
which is why I think most people are used to, if they work in the digital space, their company saying, it's against, policy for you to connect your work devices to a public network unless you're using a VPN.
Yes, use a VPN. When in doubt, always VPN, wrap it in a VPN.
Wrap it in a
VPN.
Wrap that banana up in a VPN. Got it.
Yes, but there's one thing that I want to point out about VPNs, because there is that phrase that I hear on all those YouTube commercials and the ads that say that your VPN browsing that data, that it's not being tracked, it's not being what we call logged. And a log is simply a piece of data that identifies your computer to another set of data, or your device, not computer, it could be any device, tablet, smartphone, et cetera, et cetera. Some VPNs have a quote unquote no logging policy, which means they log nothing. So if there are investigations that are happening, police need logs, they don't have anything to present, they don't store that data in a server, it's gone, it's nowhere.
Good.
That's a good thing. However, logs are also really good for connection data, such as at 6 when we're playing video games at 9 p.m., connection data. At 6 p.m., there are 50,000 people logging onto the server and it's overloaded. We need to make that server bigger. To get that data, you have to have connection logs. You have to have data that's actionable, that's statistically, available for you to see. And that is the good thing about logging. And some companies don't log, some companies do, which means if your VPN company is logging your data, if there is an investigation and you're doing nefarious and really bad things online and you are being subject to investigation, that logging data is available from your VPN company to be given as evidence, whatever the material is going to be used as.
So they can be subpoenaed for your logging.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they would need to be subpoenaed. Yes.
I've used ExpressVPN. Do you like that one?
Express is a good VPN. That's a reputable VPN as well.
Yes. Whew.
Do they log your activity, Andrew? Do you know?
Let's see. Let me see.
No activity or connection logs.
Okay.
ExpressVPN does not and will never log traffic data, DSM queries, or anything that could be used to identify you.
Yes, that's it. That's it.
That's why they didn't catch you dumping all those bodies in Lake Mead, Andrew.
Well, they didn't catch that because I didn't search for it on my computer. I knew where the lake was and where the deepest parts were. All right, well, we will talk about two-factor authentication and password manager apps coming up. But first, a quick and secure break. For someone getting started with the process of removing personal information online, what do you think are the most important things to be aware of up front? Like, what types of information are available online about us that we might not even realize are online?
Right. So some forms of PII that are less commonly thought about would be like voting records. Some states, they're liable to present your voting records online legally, like the state of Florida is one of them.
Yeah, I think Nevada is too, the state I'm in, because I've learned some things about my neighbors I wish I didn't know.
Yeah, Georgia too.
I'm like, oh, they're Republican? Oh, darn.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
And it's right out there. Another one would be like intellectual property, like drawings, like manuals, even scientific formulas are considered intellectual property. Legal documentation like court cases that you can Google about your friends and your family. That's online as well, along with their mug shots, if you also know where to look. Other things like health data, such as your health conditions, that's very personal to you. That should never be available. Health treatments that you may be receiving for any health condition you may have, or prescriptions that you are prescribed. Don't give that information out to people. People want to hurt you. People want to sell you things like fentanyl that are not for you, that you should never be taking. Don't buy pills off the street. Don't buy medication from anybody other than a doctor.
And is that
especially these days?
Yeah, I was going to say, is that a common trap that people fall into? Like, do they express that they either have been prescribed something in the past or they want to be prescribed something currently, and for whatever reason, they're not able to get it done, so they turn to sort of like the black market online to find these things?
So a great hot topic right now would be TikTok in the universe, and how TikTok is under lots of scrutiny, how They were pushing videos that were linking and sending people to buy illegal drugs off of these very nefarious and dark places. And children were getting a hold of these things, and children were doing things because they were being shown these videos. And that's a whole other really, really good topic.
Yeah, maybe we can discuss that with you again sometime because, I mean, TikTok, there's misinformation everywhere online, but TikTok is uniquely, people who use TikTok, I think, are uniquely vulnerable to misinformation because the comment section is buried under a button. You don't see people correcting people unless you click in. Two, it's all about consuming and swiping along, just moving
Right.
along. And I think those two elements are dangerous, and I'm sure there's others too. But yeah, I mean, people are rewarded by tricking the algorithm, right? So they get more views. So there's an incentive to hook people potentially with misinformation right at the top of the video. Younger generations use TikTok. There's many dangerous aspects.
There are over 150 million users only in the US that use TikTok.
Yeah, we actually talked about that last week.
Yeah.
Crazy. Mm-hmm.
That was a huge subject that was part of the congressional hearing the CEO of TikTok had to go through last week. And kind of on that note, I'm just curious for your general take. Do you think that the US, we'll just say the US government, is right to be concerned about the potential of the Chinese government spying on US citizens via TikTok?
Yes, a fantastic question, especially for myself, who is going to give an entirely personal opinion on this subject. And I wanted to start out by stating that in this congressional hearing, that Congress actually stated and warned the American people that TikTok is a weapon by the Chinese Communist Party used to spy on you and to manipulate what you're seeing to further exploit you and further generations. That was stated in the congressional hearing. And if you're asking, which no one did, if I agreed with that particular statement, I would say I would agree that given just the facts that I've read online that are open source, it doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem the questions that were asked of him, where he was explicitly asked if he spied on American citizens. And he stated, I'm not going to quote this, but he did say that spying wasn't what he would have called it. Is a little bit damning, to say the least.
Yeah. I guess he's under oath too, so he has to kind of walk a very fine line, and he doesn't want to implicate himself or TikTok, so I guess he has to use some choice words that probably don't sound good, like what you're describing.
Yes, and spying on American people is a big old no, 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 no. That's not a thing that is looked upon in any sort of light in the cyber intelligence, the government community at all. In fact, you receive a lot of briefings about that and how you will be put where you're supposed to be if that is what you do.
Wow.
Because that is how much privacy is valued, and how much it should be valued by the American people. It's your right to privacy.
Sure. And if nothing else, I mean, it's a national security risk, right? To think about something potentially spying on that many people. I do wonder, though, this was kind of my takeaway when watching the hearing. I feel like TikTok isn't doing anything substantially different from what any other form of social media does in terms of data collection and selling that data and using that to sort of their own benefit. It feels like we're okay with that if American run social media companies do it, but we're not okay with it if social media companies from other countries do it. But I digress.
I think it's mostly on the safety issue that is TikTok right now, and how they were bringing to light that TikTok was feeding the younger population with purpose, with intent to manipulate and exploit the younger generation, pushing
Yes.
videos. And these are not light topics, but like self-harm videos. There were children who were actually brought to extremes because they were not forced, but when you think about scrolling, you're a human being. You're not expecting what the next thing is. That's what the algorithm is for. You don't know what video you're going to be shown. And once again, some of those videos were exploiting very illicit, illegal drugs. And they were getting a hold of them. And that's really, really unfortunate.
Well, speaking of controlling the algorithm, here's another worrying example. Let's say, during the 2024 election cycle, China says, well, do we want Biden or do we want Trump to be the next president? They can put their thumb on the algorithm and influence what videos people are seeing to potentially influence the vote here. That's a huge problem.
That's huge.
Yes, there's major issues with Facebook and Twitter and many of these others, but China also has a major disregard for human rights in many, many ways. So I see why Congress is concerned about TikTok in particular. That said, I don't think they've made the case yet for banning TikTok outright. They need a good reason. They need like a good story, and they don't really have that yet. It's a lot of grandstanding right now.
Right. And that goes with, once again, the rights of the people. And I do agree that TikTok should have been banned on government and state devices, but that is my own personal opinion of just bringing awareness to if it's a company issued device, you have no privacy, and that is subject to seizure and forensic analysis at any point in time. And if you've downloaded your Facebook and your Facebook account is left open on there, goodness gracious. Or you've got like a Google Docs drive and you're doing something really bad. You're trying to make and bake bombs or something, and there you go, doing it on your company computer or something. That's once again prosecutable. And if I don't see the benefit of downloading it on your state and government device. I don't know why you want your privacy to be completely nixed like that.
No, that makes complete sense.
But personal devices, go for it.
Yeah, I think, and we've got some folks in our Discord saying this too. And I feel this to a certain extent. I feel like I have been, and Andrew, this is true of you too. We have had online presences since 2006, something like that. So there's a ton of information out there about myself and Andrew.
Yeah, we do have this like history online, and let's say old episodes of the podcast, like those are still online. But I would say the way I would tackle this is by just trying to remove as much current information as possible.
Right.
I have used a site called Delete Me.
Right.
And the URL is joindeleteme.com. And for pulling up the pricing, 1 person, 1 year, Delete Me will find all of your personally identifiable information like your home address, phone number, etc. And they will go to these sites where it is listed and say, hey, please take this down. So it's $10.75 a month or $129 a year. I did this for 1 year, 2 or 3 years ago at this point. They did a pretty good job of just wiping everything out once. And it's been a little bit of whack-a-mole since then. I haven't renewed my subscription with them. I've just been doing it myself from here on out because a lot of these sites will put your information online, but then at the bottom, you can click a link and request that they pull this information down. This happened about 6 months ago. I Googled my name and address. I saw it listed. I scrolled to the bottom. Please remove my information. And they took care of it within like a week. And I'm proud to say now I search for my name, Andrew Sims, and then I search for my home address. There's nothing here.
That's great.
There's nothing.
That is awesome. And that's great that service has a reputation from you, a personal experience that you can fall on.
Yeah. Now, I will say I'm searching my name and phone number, and I do see that. So there's 2 sites I'm going to have to write to, probably after recording, and say, fuck you data mining bastards. Take this the fuck down. I hate you.
Andrew's going to send a strongly worded email.
So,
Yeah.
Andrew, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
What did you have to do for Delete Me to delete your information?
I know what you're going to say. You're going to say you gave over your personal info so they can take down your personal info. Yes, that's what I did. Yeah.
So you trusted a third party with your personal information who is subject to data breaches, hacking, and theft of all. And you've given that trust in them. And I can tell you, kind sir, that if you don't want to do that, my Medium article allows you to be the Voldemort of your own life and take a stab at your own.
Is it the same way I'm describing? Like you go to the bottom of these pages and click the link and request the takedown?
So on the Medium article that I have, you know how you had to go to this website? You had to get on your computer, open a browser, type in, find yourself, go to it. You just go to my Medium article. I have all of these links already set up for you. So what do? You want to opt out of this place? Click it. It takes you right to that opt-out section and you put in your name and poof, just with the wind. But I want to go ahead and say, when you do that, I would say it would take you to go through my Medium article, maybe 30 minutes. I do this twice a year, sometimes 3 times because I'm paranoid. And take you 30 minutes. And some of these sites will, you're where you went, like People Finder or whatever, and there you were. You submitted that information for deletion. That page, if you go back to it, it will like error out, or 404. It says it doesn't exist. And that's probably because it's going through the process on the back end of confirming that this really is that person, really take it down. So that's an example of immediate, quote unquote, deletion of your personal information from that website. However, there are some websites that when you submit your request for deletion, that it could take, anywhere from immediately to a couple of weeks. So when you do this process, I highly, highly recommend the very beginning, go online, search yourself really fast, see what all you can find, go to my Medium article, slap through all of those real quick. Could probably take you less than 30 minutes. Come back in a month and see what you've got about yourself online.
That's a good strategy. And I did decide to get a little creepy. Yeah. Laura, I already did this for you. Yesterday, I started looking up your shit. And you know what? You're actually in a good place. I searched your name and your address, and I only found one thing.
Oh, you have to tell me what it is. See, this is the benefit of having like a super common name.
Yes.
I will say, because anytime I've ever Googled my name, I might find something about myself on page like 5 of the results, but everything else is just other people who are, actually famous or just have like higher profile presences that share a name with me or a very similar name. So that's the benefit. Give your kids super common names, y'all, and you'll be protecting them.
Yeah. And I did search for Pam too, and I found a couple instances of her address. I didn't look at your phone numbers yet, but as a homeowner, I was uniquely worried about that because unfortunately, home records are publicly accessible.
Mm-hmm.
That is publicly accessible by design, and that's disappointing. And I feel like in the age of the internet, that should no longer be a thing.
Yes, that one thing about PII is there are some forms of data that by law, because the removal of that data could present misrepresentation of data, it can't be removed. So people in government jobs, we all know our salaries are out there, our names are out there. I mean, you can learn everything about that person, where they work, how much they made last year. And you feel me. If you're out there, you feel me. It's
I feel you. I feel you. Not
yes.
as a government employee, but as a homeowner.
Yeah,
Yes.
but I mean, you even brought it up in terms of public records like voting history. I mean, I think for all
Hmm.
of us, this applies to a certain extent. I literally got physical mail around the midterm elections being like, hey, Laura, these 3 neighbors around you didn't participate in the last presidential election. You should go talk to them. And I was like, what the fuck? Like,
I have a great story I have to tell y'all at some point, maybe for After Dark. It's a really, really funny story about how I duped my community on Nextdoor.
oh
Oh,
man, that'll be perfect for After Dark because we're gonna be carrying on the cybersecurity theme in this week's installment of After Dark. So that'll be perfect.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really funny.
So you had mentioned, I think you used the word neutralize, which I really like. I was wondering if there is an in-between option for maybe if you want to reduce your online presence, but you don't want to completely nuke it,
Hmm.
what that could look like.
I would say completely nuking your online presence with it, such as for a celebrity, celebrities who don't want their children understandably mass pushed online by paparazzi and stuff like that. People making money off of that. Those services obviously are services that you can pay for to completely nuke yourself. And then there's on the other end where if you don't care about your PII, you can post your password online for everybody to see, which I don't recommend, but that's the other scale of completely not caring about your PII. And then there's just kind of neutralizing it right in the middle. And a good way of doing that is truly hop on that Medium article and follow along with that. It's gonna remove, if you're on Facebook, it's gonna remove, possible links to your Facebook. But you know, who of your friends and family are gonna Google your Facebook? They're gonna be on their app and they're gonna type it in the search bar. So there's no harm in that. Your Instagram, same thing, unless you're trying to promote yourself on Instagram. Or Twitter or things like that. So going through that Medium article, you're neutralizing yourself in a very healthy way to where your footprint is gone, but the shoe can be found somewhere if you know where to look. But I've made it to where it's difficult.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I mean, I like that analogy too, that you can still have a presence online, but it's really only for the people who you want to know where to find it, right? They want to know where the shoe is.
Right. And like for you, Laura, for example, if you found yourself online, maybe by searching yourself, maybe you didn't know that there are ways to manipulate a Google search to where it produces very specific outputs for someone like me who knows how to utilize that. Or there are other ways that ethical and non-ethical hackers like to use, which is a whole lot of technical jargon. But for example, I don't remember the exact number, but Twitter actually has a limit of the amount of tweets that you can look back on in history. I think it's like 3,200 maybe. So if you have like 65,000 tweets, you can only go back so far, like in history. And there are ways that if you know what you're doing, then you can bypass that and see from the beginning of time.
Yeah, I think we've talked about some sort of plugin or web app that lets you delete just all your old tweets automatically. Like
Yeah, tweet
after
delete.
2 weeks,
Tweet delete,
tweet
yeah.
delete.
Yeah.
Couple weeks, just delete some. That's probably a really good tip for people because some of that stuff lurks for a really long time on the internet. We see it every few months, right?
Mhm.
Some old tweet
Yeah.
is getting dug up by a politician or whoever else, and it's always bad news for them.
You want to hear
So-
something scary, but something really fun for anybody at home that can do that right now? There is a site, okay, it is legally debated on whether or not it should be legal. And you're going to very quickly understand why it can go right over the line into exposing personal information very easily. And this is for learning. And I hope that you enjoy this example. But if you're at a computer, there is something called Wayback Machine.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
We talk
yeah.
about this.
Oh, you've talked about Wayback Machine?
Oh,
We
yeah.
know about the Wayback Machine.
Wayback. It's a good one.
I used it to look at some of my, because I've had a Twitter account since 2008.
Mhm.
I used it to look at some of my old tweets, and it was, I would just say, like, excruciatingly embarrassing.
That was
Thankfully,
your past life who
Yeah.
tweeted those?
yeah, I was just like, what was I thinking? What was I doing? Like, just the amount of stuff that I thought was worth posting on the internet was just crazy. But I definitely do use tweet delete now, so that I don't have anything on my Twitter that's older than a year old.
That's really cool.
I'm glad we're bringing this up, actually, because as a publisher on the internet, primarily through Hypable for a 9-year period, over the years, especially in the back half of Hypable's life, I would get a message from somebody who did have something posted on Hypable, let's say in the early days, and they no longer wanted to have it online. So they would email and say, hey, can you please remove it? I'm no longer proud of this article, or, maybe they're getting ready for a big job interview, so they don't want that appearing on Google. People had frequently asked us over the years to delete articles because they didn't want it out there anymore. And I said, sure. Like it's not like those particular articles were really benefiting us. And even if they were really benefiting us, I don't think I ever hit that snag, but I probably would have just changed the byline with their permission to like Hypable staff or something like that.
Right.
But I do want to also mention that Voldemort brought up the Wayback Machine. You can write to the Internet Archive and ask them to pull something down.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it is possible. We actually took all of Hypable off the Wayback Machine because we kept getting caught up in these lawsuits with these photographers who were fishing around for some quick cash. That's a long story I've explained on the show before. But you can delete stuff from the Wayback Machine if you want. So while it's there, it can be removed. Not all hope is lost.
It's very cool to look on, though.
It's amazing. Yeah.
You can see how the internet has really grown.
I know. It's crazy to look back at some of those early 2000s websites and see what the state of design was at that point. Speaking of which, one of our listeners in the Discord just found the old Smart Mouths About Us page on the Wayback Machine. Andrew, this Voldemort was a podcast that Andrew and I did also in another life when we were much younger.
I like how we had a donate button. I forgot we had a donate button.
Yeah,
this was
we did.
obviously before Patreon.
This was pre-Patreon, yeah. It was the only way that we could like pay for our hosting and shit.
That's great.
Wow.
Oh, man, that's a throwback.
It is. So I wanted to talk about two-factor authentication. It's actually been in the headlines recently because Twitter announced they would no longer support SMS, texting 2FA, unless you're a Twitter Blue subscriber. Now, the reason they got rid of this for non-subscribers appears to be because keeping this SMS service up and running is actually pretty expensive. But we also have to note that the SMS two-factor authentication has never been a secure method of two-factor authentication. It's just been easy. I think one reason it's insecure, and maybe the main reason it's insecure, is because you can spoof phone numbers. So you could intercept somebody else's 2FA code. So I wanted to bring it up because 2FA has been in the headlines recently. Can you quickly, Voldemort, share what 2FA is?
Yeah, so 2FA, otherwise known as two-factor authentication, is just simply put, it's a security method that's put in place that requires two forms of authentication. So whether that's you put in a password, of course, you put in your password, everyone knows about that. And then you get a second form of authentication, such as a push to your phone that you would approve or disapprove, or a phone call that you would answer and follow the prompt, or a text message in which you take the code and implement it onto your screen and then press enter and then authenticate. Believe it or not only can phone numbers be spoofed and stuff, but every day in my working life, I see this happen multiple times. One other way that people are taking advantage of those that have two-factor on their phone with an authenticator app, like Duo Mobile is one that I use and recommend, is it's an exhaustion. It's two-factor exhaustion where somebody has hacked an account or are attempting to, and they're sending over and over and over and over again push notifications saying, do you approve this? And it'll be back to back to back to back. So here you are, the user. You've got one push notification. You don't recognize the location or that you're even trying to two-factor in, so you decline it. Another one comes in immediately, decline, and then repeat, decline, decline. Finally, the user is like, fuck this, accept. Guess what? They accepted that. Do you know what that means? They're compromised. They need to now change their password. That means that two-factor means once you have made it to that second factor, that push, that phone call, that text message, your password's compromised. They knew your password. That first factor of authentication was compromised. They are now trying to get into that second factor. And if you have a text message, if they know your phone number and they're doing some sort of nefarious thing, if they've got your phone, they're accepting that text and implementing it in, or you're getting a phone call, and it's just a repetitive process at that point.
Yeah. Well, and it's just as easy too if you're just not paying attention to where the pushes are coming from, right? So
yes,
let's say that you're using an app like this, Dual Mobile you mentioned, but also Google Authenticator.
Yes.
Say you're using something like that and you just so happen to be logging into something secure. And at the same time, somebody is trying to spoof you. And they send an authentication request right around the time when you're getting ready to send one yourself. You might not think to pay attention to the geolocation of where that authentication is coming from. That shit happens all the time where people just aren't paying attention and they assume that they are the one who initiated that push.
Right.
So we mentioned the Google Authenticator app. And there are physical keys as well. A very popular one is the YubiKey. And this one can just plug into your phone or your computer. They also have NFC chips built in, so you could just bring it close to your phone or maybe some laptops, and that'll be that two-factor authentication. And by the way, to activate this within a login, let's say it's something super sensitive. Like I'll run through real quick. I've got 2FA set up for Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Tesla, Robinhood, Ring, and Backblaze. All very important services to me. So I set up two-factor authentication. It's pretty easy to set up. And in most cases, once you do set it up in these individual websites or apps, they will also give you backup codes. And those are for in the event that you lose your YubiKey, that you forget to transfer Google Authenticator over to your new phone. You can use one of those backup codes to regain access to your account. And I guess from there, you would just set up 2FA again. But what you're supposed to do with those backup codes is print them out and put them somewhere secure.
Yes.
This is what I've done. I'm not saying where, because I don't need anybody robbing me and taking all my stuff.
Get a Great Dane.
Get a Great Dane?
Yeah.
Should I strap it to the bottom of the dog, the codes?
Yes. Just leave it with him.
Okay, got it. My guard dog, my 2FA guard dog.
They're super, super intimidating and not at all sweet and cuddly.
Like our doggo. We have a Great Dane. He's 185 pounds and eats 14 cups of food a day.
Wow.
He's also just a big sweetie.
Yeah, his name is Bane.
And although he is a big sweetie, I would probably not trust him to keep my backup codes safe.
Voldemort, I hope one of your security question answers isn't Bane, because you just revealed one of your passwords, so to speak. Like my dog, I always call him Brooklyn. His name's not actually Brooklyn. I've just been making that up on the show for years. I'm kidding, listeners.
I was like, wait a minute.
Wouldn't that have been the best twist of all time?
How long have you had Brooklyn? Like a decade.
2014, yeah.
Yeah. If I had just found out that wasn't his real name, I've met Brooklyn in person. I've been to your house. And if you had this ruse going for the last decade to be like, don't tell anyone Brooklyn's real name.
Imagine like me watching Laura go, oh, Brooklyn. And I'm sitting there like laughing to myself. Oh my God, if she only knew his name's actually Clancy. That was his name on his paperwork. But the reason I bring this up is because as podcasters, we have to be mindful of this. We can't be talking about our favorite pet, our childhood best friend, the color of our childhood home. If we do, we need to be making up different answers on air or in those security questions. I am very mindful of this. When I make an account and they want me to answer what's my favorite pet, I don't put in Brooklyn. I've never put in Brooklyn. Who'd I put in? I'm not fucking telling you. That's one of my answers.
Thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't talking to you, Voldemort. I was talking to the listeners. In case that sounded like I was attacking. But anyway, so that's kind of an overview of 2FA. Anything else you want to bring up there?
No, you were going into printing it out and if that's what you should do. But that is a method that for securing it, and secure it with something like your passport or something like your birth certificate, social, that you also would find private, that you're not keeping online. So there are things that are good for, documentation, and everyone, has that somewhere in their home, I would expect. But if not, there are, of course, password managers.
Ooh, look at that transition.
Great transition.
Password managers obviously let you store all your passwords within one app. You access them using a master password. The data is encrypted. 1Password, I think, is regarded as the most secure. I would have said LastPass too, but they had a major security breach last year. They can no longer be trusted. 1Password and these others have extensions so that you can hook it into like your phone's operating system in many cases or your web browser. So they're pretty easy to use. It's not the cleanest process, I'll say. Sometimes they get a little glitchy. They'll forget to say the password. They'll forget to update a password. The passwords aren't syncing. I've run into issues like this. But I do, in general, really like it. Especially because I love generating passwords within 1Password. You can get some secure ass passwords in there.
Yeah,
you sure can. I personally recommend it's a password keeper known as KeePass. I will spell that: Kilo Echo Echo Papa Alpha Sierra Sierra. KeePass.
Are you landing a plane right now, or what?
No, she's speaking in cybersecurity professional.
I'm speaking in army, military.
Oh, right. Yeah, you came from the military. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Now I get it. Sorry. Go ahead.
But it's great, and you can download it on Windows, Mac, and Linux computers. So it's awesome. I use it in my day-to-day.
And
Cool.
This is free, it looks like.
It is free. That's the best part about it. It is free. It's awesome. I use it daily, like I said, and I've used it for like 7 years at this point.
Okay. 1Password is unfortunately not free. It used to be, but then they switched to the dreaded subscription model, and now it's $2.99 a month, billed annually. And so I do it. I like it. I like that I can use it on all my devices. But still, they do have a family plan, $5.99 a month for up to 5 people. Yeah, so that's $1 a month if you split it with a family of 5.
Maybe we should get on a family plan, Andrew.
Hey, yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, no.
That's an important note. Even if you do a family subscription, you do keep your password separate. It's not like Netflix where you can just easily tap into somebody else's profile.
Right. Everybody gets their own vault, right? I think that's what 1Password calls it.
but you can also share passwords if you want. So we could do that and then share like MuggleCast and Millennial passwords.
You could.
See? We could do that.
I'll even share with you my password to bigboobies.net if you want that
Oh,
one.
boy. Well, you know that I've been waiting for that, so.
This reminds me of a time. Remember Garth, our old Australian friend?
I do remember him.
He once gave me a doc with all of his gay porn site passwords, and it was the best.
The commitment is commendable.
I didn't have to pay for this gay porn. It was great.
This
was before Pornhub. Yeah.
Listen, he was trying to help, a young, broke,
horny,
freshly out of the closet
Right.
Andrew to satisfy all of his fantasies.
He probably got off knowing we were jerking it to the same things. I'm sorry. We have a guest here. What am I doing?
Hey, no, I was going to say, I actually came out to my family like circa 2009 on Christmas Day.
Oh,
Merry
what a gift from
Christmas.
Santa. Wait, did you have it in a box? Was the big announcement in like a wrapped box?
Unfortunately, it wasn't anything cool like that. It was just right around a morning fire with mimosas. Perfect time.
By the way, I'm a lesbian.
Yes.
Cheers. Okay, just checking.
That was
Cheers to that. Well, that really went off the rails for a couple of minutes.
That's okay.
But,
as it should.
yeah. Something I will bring up in After Dark is somebody I know still uses a little password book, like a physical one, and I do not recommend that because,
Yeah.
I mean...
We're going to talk about a couple of examples of people who do questionable things with their passwords.
Yeah. So, Laura, lastly, there are, I don't know how to describe this, like a new form of passwords in the pipeline.
Yeah. So this is something that Microsoft, Apple, and Google have already announced that they're going to be supporting, but there are other, I think, examples of, other companies that are going to be using this as well, rather than you using something like a YubiKey or a password manager to keep all your passwords in one place and autofill them for you. A lot of companies are going to be moving to this thing called passkeys as the new standard to authenticate who you are on the web. And this essentially allows you to authenticate your identity through either your Touch ID on your keyboard, if you have that, or your Face ID on your phone. So when you go to a website that uses this and you're going through the sign up flow, they sign you up with the use of that. And see, it's like so weird to describe. It's like the use of like your fingerprint or like your Face ID. And that is your password moving forward. And it's not something that anyone, at least at this point in time that we know of, can replicate, which is really cool. This is something that I've had experience with once, and it is very cool. It's super easy because once you set it up, every time you go back to the place where you set it up, it'll just prompt you to like, hey, like Face ID, and it'll automatically pop it up, or like use your Touch ID on your keyboard.
Right.
It's really cool. And it's supposed to be more secure than using regular passwords, which makes a whole lot of sense.
Yes.
And the reason for that is, I believe, and Voldemort, you may be able to substantiate this for me, your identifier, be it your fingerprint or your Face ID, that is stored on the device locally. So it's not something that gets stored by your browser or by the website, for example. Is that right?
Right. From what I understand, that is how it works. And essentially what these passkeys are, they are passwordless logins, which is what you were saying. And it's just an authentication method that doesn't require you to, of course, like you were saying, input your username and password, because it's remembering that very, very unique data about you. And that's your DNA, because that fingerprint, that Face ID, that's biometric data. So I think that as a security method is absolutely incredible. I also do know that at the time of this topic. The technology is so new, advancing and unraveling, that this conversation could be completely different in a couple of months, which I think is also incredible. And these big companies like Google and Apple and Microsoft are all on board with this. And I think, like you
That's
said,
key.
It is.
Pun intended.
yeah, it is. And like you said, one password already supports that, which
Yeah.
is great.
And I tried it. They have a demo up and I tried it and it worked beautifully. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, what a relief. It's almost like I can't believe I'm saying it. No passwords.
Yeah, nothing.
No
I know.
text password. Oh,
And that's the great thing, is passwords are, we're human. They're easy to forget. They're hard to remember. They're hard to come up with. And it's just so much easier now that you can literally just go to an app and look at it. Kind of like when you're doing like Apple Pay and stuff. It's just look at it, click it twice, bing.
And you're done.
Isn't it scary? Do you remember in 2000 when we were wearing those aluminum foil space hats? Because I do. I actually I did that. My dad was a prepper for sure.
Oh, because of Y2K.
Well, it was aliens. It was Y2K. It was zombies. He truly believes the CDC that they have like a zombie serum that they're keeping and harboring. He was one of those.
So then
Wow.
you went and got into military intelligence so that you could be like, no, Dad.
There's no, but the thing is I ended up marrying someone who was like 50% Russian, and I'm in cybersecurity. So I was like, oh, they've infiltrated.
Oh, no. Damn it, Putin.
Damn it, Putin. So yeah, we're all vulnerable somehow.
Oh, for sure. For sure. It would be impossible not to be. Voldemort, this was so helpful and insightful. Definitely have had people popping off in the Discord reacting to this conversation, talking about what steps they're going to be taking to further protect their online security. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up, though, is there anything else that you'd want to plug? We're definitely going to be sure to link the 2 Medium articles.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I know that I probably spoke to some of you when I mentioned mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, who may have not just your information being accidentally leaked, but their information. Think of our older generation who is vulnerable to phishing attacks, to people calling and manipulating them over the phone to buying these gift cards. That's not real. Tell grandma, grandpa to hang up. Aunt, uncle, that's not somebody who's your friend. And I want you to know that you can help those people to eliminate their presence too. And it's very simple. So what's going to happen when you're going through that process on Medium of eliminating your information? What they want is an email address that identifies you a lot of the time. So you're going to get an email, a confirmation email. Hey, Voldemort, are you sure you want to remove your information here? You click on it and interact with that link. That's a solidifying, important piece of information that some of these websites are looking for, is for you to interact with that link. So if you are at grandma, grandpa's house, mom and dad, for you, if they're older, you can just sit down with them at a computer and make sure that they have a good email that isn't filled with spam. Create a new one if you have to, use some of these methods and help her have a secure password. Write it down for them. It might be a little bit easier for the older generation to remember something that's written down. My grandma's one of them. She still takes Polaroid pictures and writes the date and what was going on that day. So, good old fashioned handwriting is always an option. But you can do that and help them stay safe as well. And if they have Facebook, take their phone real quick and just help them out. Just go ahead and set their privacy settings up and lock them down. They're not going to know. Your
They're
kids,
not even going to know you did it.
They won't know. Your kids, make sure they're safe too. I have friends who have kids that are old enough to have social medias, and you can go and look at their stuff and it's just all available, and they're posting about their middle school dance and stuff, and they don't know that their photos are being geotagged, so they're geotagging their middle school or something. Don't have your kids tag anywhere that they are, please. By the way, if you have children, Snapchat, if they have Snapchat and they have that worldview on, I don't have Snapchat, but those things can be used to find people, to locate people underage and take them or convince them of things.
I don't know why people have that feature on.
Yeah, me either.
And I admit, I do look. I'm like, I guess I'm just like fascinated that people actually have this on. I see one person exactly where they were 7 minutes ago, another one 44 minutes ago, 46 minutes ago, 2 hours ago. Every time you load up Snapchat, it reports the location to this map feature.
It's very scary. And, if you want someone to follow you wherever you are, share your location with your family or a trusted friend. Or I'm going to go ahead and give those who are in college or high school. There's actually an app for you don't have to be in college. You could be walking anywhere. And it's an app to where someone can kind of watch how they kind of like babysit you on the way home, but I want to make sure I'm giving you the name of the app correctly.
It would function like Find My Friends, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Google Maps, I think, has a feature like this. Uber has a feature too, from a safety perspective.
Your Safe is one, spelled You Are Safe is a really good one. And it's great. Some of these devices or some of these applications are set up to where they can pick up the location of a device to, so many feet away from a person. So the information and data that's being spit back out is accurate. And that's so important given if something were to happen. I have used instances like this in working cases where something may have happened to somebody and their last location was able to be picked up because the proximity that was set for that device was so close and so accurate that it provided solidifying data for us to do what we needed to do.
I'm now going to be sitting here wondering moving forward, does she know what I'm doing? Does she have tabs on me?
And we haven't even touched on AirTags here.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Dios mio. All right. Well, we do have to wrap this up. So thank you so much, Voldemort.
Thank you.
AKA Christy. This has been really great. And you're going to stick around today and After Dark. It's going to be available on Patreon and for Apple Podcast subscribers. And we're going to talk more about cybersecurity. We're going to get a little more personal, though. We're going to talk about our own cybersecurity fails, phishing scams. I know a couple stories we teased earlier are going to come up as well. So that'll be available at patreon.com/millennial. And again, over on the Apple Podcasts platform, there's a subscribe button if you tap into the show. There's many other benefits waiting for you on Patreon as well. We do a monthly Zoom hangout with Bay and executive producer level patrons. You can hang out in our recording studio as we record each week. And there are many more benefits. So check it all out at patreon.com/millennial. Thanks everybody who supports us because we could not do this without you. And now it's time for recommendations. I'm going to make a throwback to the top of the show. Our dear Pam cut herself in the kitchen. So I want to recommend No Cry Premium Cut Resistant Gloves. 100% food grade, level 5 protection, machine washable, superior comfort and dexterity, lightweight, and it comes with a complimentary ebook. $11.99 on Amazon. Look at this freaking photo.
Oh my God.
It's terrifying. It looks like a horror movie.
Okay, can you actually just go ahead and order this and send it to Pam?
I will. Yeah.
My recommendation is, if you live in the United States, and you're just feeling kind of hopeless with what to do because it feels like every fucking day in this country is like, oh, another day, another school shooting. I would recommend making a donation to Everytown for Gun Safety, who have, really consistently and steadily worked towards supporting and promoting gun safety legislation reform. And if nothing else, definitely check out their site for some really helpful resources about things that you can be doing in your community to help move the needle. It helps me personally at times like this to feel like there's something that I can contribute to try and make a difference. So
awesome. And for my recommendation this week, I'm going to be recommending a company called Lazarus Naturals. It's a fantastic company that strives to make all their products available for everyone. And that product is CBD. And as a veteran, as a human being, that just hurts. If you're over 30, if you're over 90, if you're over 4 years old, something about you is hurting. This company is incredible. Number one, they offer an assistance program. So veterans get 60% off.
Hell yeah.
So
hello.
Those on long-term disability get 60% off. And those that qualify as low income also get 60% off. And I highly, highly recommend their topicals. It's helped me and my pain tremendously. I have a lot of inflammation from carrying like 75 pounds on my back, and that was half my weight in the Army. And I'm not broken, I'm broked, as we like to call it. And this has been a way that's helped me manage some of that pain. So topical. They have some things that you can take, such as like edibles, gummies. So if you want to take that healing internally, I do recommend their gummies as well.
Awesome.
Cool. Yeah, we're big fans of CBD gummy on the show.
Yeah, we are. We are. All right. Well, thank you again so much, Christy. This has been awesome. Thank you for your service as well. And
thank you.
Thank you for all this information you've shared today. It's really, really important stuff.
Thank y'all for having me.
Yeah. Our pleasure.
Great.
We'll have to have you on sometime if we have any other security themed discussions.
Yeah, absolutely. If not, I have a hidden obsession for plants.
Hidden? Is it hidden? They're pretty visible on the camera.
If you would like, here, let me give it just a quick over there.
Oh yeah, you got a lot.
You can't really see them, but I have probably over 100 plants.
Oh my goodness.
I breathe well. There's lots of oxygen here.
Yeah. So Andrew is a plant daddy. So
not compared to that though.
So you two could definitely have a whole episode talking about being plant parents.
Just push plants on you, Andrew.
Yeah. Anyway, a couple of reminders before we wrap up. Make sure you're following the show for free in your favorite podcast app so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can contact us by writing to millennialshow@gmail.com or by using the contact form or anonymous confessional on millennialshow.com. By the way, we are doing a confessional palooza next week. We are recording it this Thursday, meaning 2 days from when we are recording. So if it's past Thursday, it's going to be too late for that confessional palooza. But if you hear this on Wednesday, feel free to shoot us a confessional and we might be able to get it in for the episode we're recording on Thursday. But anyway, that'll be a lot of fun with everybody confessing what they need to get off their chest.
It'll be pre-church.
Exactly. Yeah. Get it out of the way. We'll forgive you. Whether that's good enough for like your particular faith system, I don't know, but Millennial will forgive you. So
yes, it always feels good to get something off your chest too, right? So
I'm immoral, so I.
And last but not least, do follow us on social media. We're Millennial Show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And then over on TikTok, we are Millennial Pod. Thanks everybody for listening. I'm Andrew.
I'm Laura.
I'm Voldemort. Christy.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Stay safe online.
Wrap up that banana.
Wrap up that VPN.
Wrap it before you tap it.